What did we learn from the CSA T20 challenge? I think that it's the perfect time for us to speak about this, still fresh in our minds. And I think that with the recent article that Ungama put up on the site with Dean Alger's quotes, um, there's some interesting points that he made over there about massive runs that need to be scored by domestic players or players going back into domestic cricket. So we're going to discuss everything today on this show. I've got special guests with me today. I've got the Full Quota podcast with me today, and I'm really excited to chat to them. These guys dedicate a lot of time and effort to domestic cricket, domestic, semi-pro, women's cricket, besides the Proteas and the normal things, but they dedicate a lot of time to that. So please, guys, listen to what they have to say. They know what they're talking about. I'm going to be very, very excited to talk to them and get the show going. I think this is a very good conversation to have, especially with the 4-day competitions kicking off tomorrow. The T20 competition is also just completed. So South Africa got crashed out of the World Cup. It's basically the perfect time to talk about things like this, to think about who's the next generation, who's the guys going forward. What did we learn from the CSA T20 challenge? There has been a lot of talk about the ground. There's been a lot of talk about the conditions, the way certain players perform there. We're going to dive right into this today on today's show. But before we get going, before we get started, thank you to everybody for supporting us recently. Please click subscribe. Please click that notification bell for all future videos if you are new. What I would like you guys to also do is download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. And if you want to help us grow and promote South African cricket, become a Patreon today. The link is in the description as well. Also, if you want to read all our features and regular updates, go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your regular updates. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Looking forward to this one, guys. A very good evening and welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host, Khalid, and today I'm joined by the Full Quota podcast, the guys from Mpo. You know Mpo, of course, and you know Tim, of course. They've been on the channel before, but I wanted to obviously highlight the fact that they do have a channel. So please go over there and subscribe to their channel and listen to their podcast. It's amazing content over there. They give some amazing insight, nicely balanced. Sometimes they don't agree, sometimes they agree, but that's what you watch the content for. It's a similar case on this channel too. So let's get straight into it. I'm looking forward to this one, guys. First and foremost, what I want to talk about specifically to start off with is the conditions. When I looked at this particular performance, there have been different pitches that they obviously played on. So what actually happened here, I saw there were certain strips that were 230 wickets, and there were certain strips that were 130, 140 wickets. So conditions were up and down. Sometimes it was humid, and sometimes it was raining. Sometimes it was sunny. Sometimes there was a dry wicket. Sometimes there was a little moisture. There was enough in it for the spinners. There was enough in it for the fast bowlers. There were some cases in matches where the ball was swinging around a lot. So we got to see a nice variety. If CSA did this purposefully, but this is a genius move, in my opinion. But I don't think they did it purposefully. They might have maybe thought about certain things, but the ground that they picked, obviously, wanting to give certain grounds, smaller grounds, some sight and some exposure, of course. So like Poch, it's also a very student friendly town. So they knew that they would get some support as well for the games, which is something that doesn't normally always happen for domestic cricket games. So that is a very good thing from that perspective. But my question is, do you think CSA thought about this? That they're going to a ground, they're going to a place where the pitches are going to be different. It's going to test the batters to the fullest, because I think that's where our weakness is currently. That top 3, 4, finding the next ones in line that can survive power plays ultimately. So let's start with Mpo and then go into Tim.
My only issue was that I think it was just money. We've seen CSA do this for years, for the past couple of years, few years, where you'll play at one venue and everyone plays on the same strip. In Durban, I think the first time they did it got really bad because towards the end of the tournament, you saw some low-scoring games, which wasn't great, and Keshav and Prenal and Subrian were just winning games with spin. That was our worry throughout the tournament, and you, to a certain extent, you got that. It became slower and lower, but the groundsman did quite well in terms of trying to give us some tracks that were healthy. The track that Dewald scored the 162 on, that was a nice track. And people were complaining before then about how slow and low they were. And so for me, my only issue is the money aspect, right? I want to see a T20 tournament where we don't play it in 3 weeks. Well, we do play it in 3 weeks, but or a month, but essentially every team plays at home. The problem for me, Khalid, is that guys are learning to play on a certain type of a wicket that changes over time. They're not learning to play in different conditions. They're not learning to play on the coast. They're not learning to play T20 at Centurion with the bounce. And yes, it is to save money, but that's where. So my and I said this today on our little podcast that we preview the CSA 4-day series, is where you put your money is where we will see fruition. We need to put money in domestic cricket. You don't need to put money in the Proteas. The Proteas are fine. They earn a salary. You need to pump money into this level of cricket and do that, and go get sponsors. Go and rejuvenate. Go on road shows and see if people are willing to invest in this format of cricket. The fact that you are playing at one stadium for 3 weeks really does hurt certain players, certain types of players, because they don't get to play in different conditions than you see. We're talking about Eddie Moore today on our podcast. Even Reynard van Tonder. Everyone says Reynard can't score runs outside of Bloem, right? But then that's fine. If there was a player who couldn't score runs outside of Northwest, we wouldn't be able to see that. So my thing is, we do need to find some way. And my suggestion was, like with the Division 2, have 2 stadiums, right? And run games through both stadiums, so at least people can get a sense. But obviously, because you're in Potch, you're stuck in the middle of the country, so it just kind of didn't work out. But it would help give you fresh pitches and would help you figure out if you want to slow. No, I think the weather conditions changing kind of helped with the different pitch conditions. But outside of that, I'm not a fan of the one stadium thing. And on top of that, T20 should be what CSA is selling, and it's on TV. So I don't get why they can't sell it a little bit more and actually have everyone play at home and play twice. Like I don't, especially because it's Division 1. Yes, there are no Proteas, but it's still a quicker format of the game, and it's easier to digest from a broadcasting perspective. But we're yet to see how CSA does this, because obviously we've got new guys in the boardroom.
Yeah, now, I agree with him, Paul, there. I think we stumbled on this. We stumbled on the fact that it really tested our batters. Tim, I'm sure it's a concern for you. I know it's a concern for me. I'm not sure about him, Paul. But I was very concerned of the fact that our power plays in this tournament weren't that great. I mean, apart from the likes of Grant Rulofsson doing his thing at the Dolphins and Deva Brevis doing his thing at the Titans consistently with Pillay, I think Jefferson Pillay and him were excellent in the power play, the way they approached it. He showed that, obviously, Pillay specifically showed that good cricket shots still work in the power play if you've got a guy at the other end as well helping you out. But even if you don't. So apart from them, there hasn't necessarily been a lot of consistency in the power plays throughout this particular tournament. Is that a concern for you?
It is. It is. The batting as a whole is a concern for me. If you take away the Donovan Ferreira and Devon Brevis show, it's very bare. I wasn't all that impressed with the batting. As Paul said, that's partly due to the pitch we had. But I still think if we had home and away, we would be in exactly the same position. We spoke to Grant Rudolphson before the competition started, and he said he marked out the difference between the attitudes of playing white ball cricket in England and here. He didn't explicitly say that it was bad, but he pretty much said there is a huge gap. Whereas in England, there is a conscious decision. It doesn't matter who you are, what team, you are going to play the way the England national side play. You are going to play front-foot cricket. You are going to attack from the ball one. You are going to aim for 60 in the first 6 overs. That is what you're going to aim for. If you get more, fantastic. If you get 35, 40, that's not good enough. It's a huge concern. you just look at the way that the Proteas are playing. Proteas are playing cricket that is behind the 8 ball. It is behind the 8 ball, and it's come from the way that the domestic guys are playing. Wayne Parnell, when I spoke to him a couple of seasons ago when he just came back from England, said the same thing. He said the intensity of the white ball cricket in England is on a different level to here. It's on a different level. Everybody here is playing their own way. Everybody's trying to find their own way. It isn't streamlined. So that is a huge, it is a huge concern. It's not that we don't have the players. I don't believe that. It is a mindset thing. The mindset of the players is, let's keep wickets in hand and go big at the top. That's not going to win you trophies. That's not going to win you World Cups. We've seen that's the way that it happened for the national side a lot in the last World Cup. So it certainly is. It's certainly something that I think that needs to be looked at. I wasn't that upset with the one ground thing, although I agree exactly. We know why it happened. I wasn't that upset. I thought the groundsman did it, in the context of it, did an exceptional job. I was worried that spin was going to have a real say as the tournament progressed. But they didn't have as much of a say as I thought. Aside from people like Pankiso.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm looking at it because the reason why it's a concern for me as well, and it would be great if they could have played at home and away, etc. And because then at least we would have also been able to watch the games live as well when they come down to Newlands, etc. And wherever the case may be, Wanderers for Mpo, of course. But like it was almost, for me, it was almost a blessing in disguise that it was such difficult conditions, because it exposed the problems that we have in South African cricket currently. It's something that I picked up on, that even a player like Yanaman Malan, who a lot of people are pushing for in the national side and saying that he needs to play in white ball cricket, he really struggled to play against spinners of domestic level caliber, but also the guys that were maybe a little bit more senior too, like the Harmers of the world, and perhaps you can say Bangiso too. But we're seeing flaws in the game. There's a when things are difficult, there's this air of survival. And my problem is not just that they're not scoring runs in the power play. It's the trying to swing and smack the ball out and hitting it straight directly to the fielder, instead of playing meaningful singles and trying to get off strike if the conditions are tricky. So there's obviously a problem with reading conditions too, Mpo, in our community, in our country, currently in the setup.
Look, so if you look at I think a couple of things. The problem is that these squads are built for all three formats. They're not built for one format, and to a certain extent with the Lions, they've got Cameron Delport just for white ball cricket, because without him, you've got Dominic Hendricks who's struggling to play in this format, or you've got Rapulana, and you've got so many guys at the Lions, and that was the Lions' problem last year, was that their squad was built for longer form cricket, ODI cricket, and 4-day cricket, and a lot of the squads are built for that. And to a certain extent, you then lend yourself to, I need to give myself time. This it's not reckless, but it seems reckless. This aggressive nature of hitting from ball one is against what I am, because if I do hit out and I get out and others don't, I'm the one who's going to be dropped, not them. And so it has to come, and I think going forward, it has to come from the top. It has to come from the DOC. Yeah, it has to come from the new coach, to say, similar to what Baz did in England, to be like, we need aggressive players. This is how we want to play. We want to see aggressive cricket, and then it will generate itself out. But the teams we had were not the best teams. The teams we had were not the best T20 sides assembled for each of the provinces, because of the nature of the contracting system in South Africa. And there were a lot of, like, for instance, for me, I like Dominic Hendricks. I don't think he can play T20 cricket for the same reason. He's going to try and hit out. He's going to find a fielder, because he hasn't actually worked on his game to do that. But it's hard for you to work on your game when you've got 4-day cricket starting this week. You've got 1-day cup starting at the beginning of the year, where you're going to get the time to be a better T20 player, where our domestic cricketers are required to be 3 format players. They're not required to be 1 format player. like the T20 mercenaries, like Riley and Wayne used to be, and everybody else. So I think that's the one thing we need to figure out is, do we need to separate and have guys and have teams have the ability to pick extra players to play T20 cricket, but they won't play the other formats? And I think from a contracting perspective, it should be, but it's taking money off people's table. And I think that's the big issue that we're having right now. The other thing for me is, with South African cricket, bowling's always been ahead of batting. Our bowlers are of a higher standard than our batting, and our batters often get caught out even by guys we perceive to be not the best type of bowlers. And you'll get, like, for instance, the whole Yanaman thing, right? To me, Yanaman's start of the season was, he's played cricket in the UK, he's come back, he's taken a break, he's starting in a new season, and it's kind of like he has to work at his spin. We always knew Yanaman struggled with spin. It's just now it's any spin. It's not just world-class spin. But even at Pangiso's, Harmer, they're world-class. But everybody else below them, they're not that. They're domestic level. But that's the thing. And so for me, the question with Yanaman was, is it just early season rust? Because it's at the start of the season. It's not in the middle of the season. It's at the start. And so for me, that's the one thing about our batting is that, and it comes, there's a whole lot of things, and it's everything that Tim mentioned. It's the style that the coach wants to play. That's fundamental. People want to win games because winning games keeps you in the job. And now being aggressive could get you out of the game because you can win. And the thing about T20, you can win being conservative. The Proteas did that up until the World Cups. They were conservative most of the times, and then they got home, you know. And as a coach in the domestic system, that's essentially what you want. You want to keep your job. So you're not going to be too aggressive. You're not going to, unless if you're given the ability to be aggressive. So the question goes to the management, it goes to the DOC, it goes to everybody to give the coaches backing. If the coaches have backing, the players will have backing to do this. But the big fundamental problem for me is that we're not playing specialist T20 players, and you're going to come stuck. And to a certain extent, even in the T20 competitions in the UK, Tim can attest to that. That's their problem. You've got 4-day guys playing T20 cricket. They have more money to get T20 specialists and to have guys just playing one format. So, for instance, Cameron Delport to me is a T20 player, but Cameron Delport's probably going to play a 1-day cup for the Lions just to justify the fact that he gets the annual salary as a 3-format player, you know. And that's the only issue that we have right now. The other issue is that this tournament is misplaced in the fact that you want the Proteas to be playing. You want that because guys, and the guys who are here, I think that the door to the Proteas is shut.
So, do you think so?
You know, I think because that's essentially what they were. That's because remember, this tournament's within the World Cup, so you've got your 16 guys at the World Cup, your 17 guys at the World Cup, and then who am I going to try and impress to get in? There were guys who put their hands up, but to a certain extent, the attitudes that when I was looking, I was like, okay, it looks like the guys who were in and around the bubble weren't putting their hands up. Even the guys who didn't make SA20. My thing was like, guys, you need to show us why you didn't pick. And the only guys who put up their hands was Pangiso and maybe Bamanye Tengle. But I think he was selected in the final, one of the backgrounds of the SA20. I don't know. I speak under correction. But for me, that was my thing. It was kind of like nobody actually cares about this tournament. We're just playing it to get out. Whereas a guy like Devil Brevis has something to prove because everyone said, dominate your domestic guys, be a bully, and they've done it, you know. But outside of Brevis and some of the other guys, I looked at them and was like, these guys, to a certain extent, I don't think guys care.
Interesting
and that's
point.
The sad part
Interesting
about it.
point of view. Interesting point of view. Tim, I'm going to ask you to add to that, but I'm also going to ask you a certain question. My concern, majority of the time, is the persistence of a bad plan. That's my concern, and I see it in the Proteas too. The conditions, the way able to read the conditions we have a lack of that from a batting perspective in this country. And Shukri Conrad picked this up from under 19 level already, saying that we have an issue in this. I'm going to start teaching the kids how to do it. And that's the first and probably one of his first pillars that he speaks about when he talks about his different things that he wants to instill in the under 19 job. And one of the main ones, particularly for white ball cricket, is reading the conditions to understand how to adapt your game to it. Because in test cricket, you can you have all day. You can guts it out. You can take time off, take the leather off the ball. You can play and guts it out and wait. You can't do that in T20 cricket. cricket. You need to find a way to score as quickly as possible to put pressure on the opposition. From a mindset perspective and the interviews that you've done with players, has that come up at all with regards to how they think about reading conditions? Because it seemed to me like there was a lack of that in this particular tournament.
I will answer that, but just to add to what Paul said, I think going forward, we have seen a little bit of it. I think going forward, this has to happen. So, people like Dom and others, they need to be told, you got your contract, but at the moment, you're not a T20 cricketer. So you're going to play your one-day cup, you're going to play your 4-day series. That's fantastic. But in your place for the T20 competition is going to be somebody from the outside. So Poland got Lewis Deploy. Now, Lewis Deploy, just in the little bits that you saw, if you just watched the 2 games where he made 25, if you just watched those games alone, you saw a player. You saw a player that knows how to play T20 cricket. 25 of 14 and 25 of 16, I think. He hit all around the ground and he knew exactly what he needed to do to get his team in a good position to attack the opposition. He wasn't fearful. Within that, he had 2 first bowlers. That happens. That happens in T20 cricket. The Knights, I feel so sorry for them losing out on Riley. They weren't expecting Riley to go to the World Cup. They lost him. They recruited somebody from England, Josh Cobb, and he had visa problems, so he didn't play at all. But that may well have been a huge contribution for them later on in the tournament. They might have gone on all the way, because I thought they with what they had, with no Riley, I thought they carried themselves very, very well. So I think going forward, teams need to think outside the box of that. So for the 3 weeks, let's go and get somebody from outside. I think that needs to happen. That will help the youngsters coming through, and it will help South African cricket. So the youngsters, so people like Copeland will have watched the way that Lewis Deploy batted and would have said, right, okay, that's how I need to play. That's how I need to play if I want to be a T20 cricketer. That's going to be a huge plus for South African cricket going forward. To answer your question, I think subconsciously, yes. I think it is a problem. Which is why I want so many of these people to go and get these gigs over in the UK. And I don't mean only mean the UK is because everybody goes there. Every nation goes there. Everybody, they spend their players to go over there for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Why? Because it's the most intense cricket in the world. It's played at a higher level than anywhere else, particularly their T20 cricket. I think that needs to happen more often. You saw the way that Mulder played. Mulder before this tournament was not really a T20 cricketer. He wasn't really a T20 cricketer. He had the talent, but he needed to go over to play for Leicestershire, dominate over there in their white ball formats, and he was very, very good for the Lions with the bat, which is what South Africa needs. South Africa needs him to perform with the bat. Rudolfsson had a decent season last season, but he made a name for himself with Essex. They love him over there. They want him back. They want him back next year. I don't know if that will happen, but they want him back next year because he was so successful. He comes back and he dominates the T20 challenge, leading run scorer. Why is that happening? That's happening because of the environment over there and the intensity of the cricket that at the moment we can't give for a range of reasons. So there's no silver bullet to change that. But there's a reason why that's happening. There's a reason. You look at Dane Patterson. Dane Patterson, a really good seasoned professional. He's a pro player, but he's dominating for Nottinghamshire. Absolutely dominating there. Comes back here. I expect him to be right up there in terms of the leading wicket takers for Western Province this season. There's a reason why they go over there. There's a reason why they like it. There's a reason why they're successful. But it's because of the environment. There's a reason. Last one, Peter Malan. Peter Malan went in as a rescue mission from Middlesex. The one they had Peter Hanscom. Yeah, they had Peter Hanscom.
Oh no!
They had Peter Hanscom. Peter Hanscom was failed miserably. He was averaging about 15 or so, and everybody within that Middlesex setup said, to a large extent, he is the reason why they're playing Division 1 next year. They say his input on and off the field was absolutely massive. That's not just guys just talking. This is the whole setup of Middlesex saying, your 6 weeks or whatever it was, it's very short, was so important to us. He's going back next year. He's going back next year because they like him. I know guys are, the whole Colpack situation was came about. That is going to help South African cricket. Those guys going over there, playing there during the winter, is going to help South African cricket no end. Not everybody gets the opportunity.
I was about to say
like Tim speaks of the guys Tim is speaking on. It's great. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great for them. But what about the others that don't get the chance to?
Yes, and my thing
especially the players of colour.
Yes. But look, I know Peter Malan scored like 400 runs on a road. I get it. I saw it. I was like, wow, well done.
Keegan Peterson went.
It's different because Keegan Peterson the Protea. It's very different.
You know, and but then we need to make it fair. So here's my thing. This is my argument. I'm not fighting the color of the players who are going and Keegan Pearson and everyone else. The DOC needs to try and organize opportunity. And I've always said this. Somebody at CSA needs to organize these 6-week opportunities for the guys coming through the pipeline, especially at under 19 level. If you are between 24 and down, you should be spending your winter, your South African winter, in the UK playing club cricket. And it needs to be, and I know they say there's no money, but there'll be money for this. This I can guarantee you. If you can go somewhere and be like, we want to get our players to be playing club cricket all around England, call up these coaches and be like, hey, I'm the director of cricket of South Africa. Here's a player. Here's a player. Here's a player. You know, that's how you resurrect things. And I understand not everybody's had it, but it seemingly works. Because I looked at Grant Rulofsson. Grant Rulofsson was #1 run scorer or whatever it is, high up there in the Royal London One Day Cup. Vian Mulder won Royal London One Day Cup Player of the Year. And I was like, but this guy is bang average. We see the potential, but he's never given it to us. Right? And then he comes to the Lions and he's the #1 run scorer for the Lions. So my thing is, if this thing works, then there's something that we need to try and do to be able to break the barriers that it's not just a white boy club that goes there. Because that's what it's always been. You know, is this white boys going to England and playing? And
when the ancestry passports was still a thing.
No, but even now, some guys are going with ancestry because they don't have to fight through visas and everything else.
Yes, they don't.
But if there's somebody who's willing, to bridge the gap between them, then that will be easier because it helps. Because the problem about a tournament is it lacks urgency. Why? It lacks urgency because nobody knows what they're fighting for. Right now, promotion relegation is like a 3-way mathematical exercise. Like you need to figure out whether you're going to be promoted or relegated. You know, you need to try to do well across all 3, but if you fail on one, it's just confusing. And so this tournament had no urgency. Nobody was fighting for anything. There was not even okay, guys, we're going to have a tour of the best 11 players going to play, I don't know, the Associate Nations or something. I don't know. Or SAA or SA merging, whatever it is. It's just the prize money, but even the prize money is low. The player of the match gets 1,500 Rand. Why am I going to be fighting for 1,500 Rand when I earn a salary? So it's just going to arrive and just go through the motions. But there are guys who actually have gone to the UK and done it. But my thing is that not everybody can do it. It's not fair. But we need to get at least the guys we identify in like a 50-man squad to go and play there for 6 weeks, or have the CSA T20 11 go and tour the UK and play there. The whole thing of we don't have the money is not an excuse. It can't be an excuse. The reason why the CSA has a CEO, a CFO, a COO, and is for them to go find the money, and the DOC. They need to go find the money somewhere. You know, it's not like cricket's never had money. They've had money. So we've killed out all the bad apples. Now go find the money. You know,
I mean,
and so my thing is, you can find the money for this. A T20, like a South African team touring the UK, playing T20 cricket or limited overs cricket across the teams of the UK would be something people would want.
Yeah, so it's true. And you do hear stories, like, for example, of the Zubair Hamzas of the world and those guys going to maybe play club cricket in England for in the off-season, etc. But that's out of their own pocket in a way, I feel. It's out of their own... I think that's probably their own reason for going there, and they probably to get a county deal and to do all of those things. You need to be of some sort of level and have some sort of experience to get picked up over there. That is.
I just want to add. I just want to add while I charge my laptop. I am here. That. Let me think. Okay, so Bjorn Hendricks, Keegan Peterson, Lazard Williams all played county cricket last season. They were all there for various times, but they all played in different teams last season. Not all successful, but they all did play last season. So they are getting opportunities. I know that Sips McCartney was playing club cricket as well. I know he's very much liked at his club over there. So they are getting opportunities. It's not that they're not getting the opportunities.
Yeah, but the majority of them have all played for South Africa already. That's my problem. You're not going to see a young Javison Pillay get a gig with Essex.
He needs.
You don't understand that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah, but you're not going
to. That's not happening.
You're not going to get.
So if we can't send them to county, then what do we do with them? How do we train them here to play the conditions right, to learn conditions? If we can't send them to England.
So here's the thing for me. My thing is this, right? I think with SA20 it might change a little bit because we're waiting for these teams to now descend on us in the next 2 months, and we get to see what these IPL structures actually look like. Because in 2010 or was it 2009 when IPL was here, they brought the entire army, and guys like, remember Yusuf Abdullah, he got a gig of being a net bowler or whatever it was, and so for me, I think possibly that could be what saves our CSA T20. It could be that all these guys who are not playing in the SA20, all these guys who are going to be in and around these stadiums because that's where their franchises are playing, right? Are going to get an opportunity to see how it is in the IPL, a higher level cricket type of structure, right? Warm-up games need to be organized. It won't be warm-up games against the MI and the JSK. It'll be warm-up games against the self-same teams we just saw now. So my thing is that it's going to be quite interesting to see whether guys will then, after seeing this SA20, seeing that this thing's going to be here for 10 years, guys up their game, because I thought that SA20 urgency was going to be there, where guys were like, there's a wild card spot. I want that wild card spot. Nobody gave us that. Even a guy like a George Linder. A guy like a George Linder gave us nothing. I'm sorry, Tim, but like I was sitting there going, this can't be it. You know?
Horrible season. And horrible form.
But and that's my issue, is like, where's the urgency? Like it's not like the Premier League where guys are fighting to get 3 points every week. Guys are like, actually, I don't even know if this will help me with promotion relegation, but it's fine. And then they'll just go through the motions, and that's why you're getting this type of cricket. And I thought that with the money that was on offer and the opportunities that were on offer after the auction, guys would be like, okay, I want to put my hand up. Guys like Bamanya Dreg, they did that, you know. They put their hands up, you know. but it wasn't the guys we were expecting, and that was the disappointing thing about this tournament, because I'm sitting there going, Oaks like Heino Kuhn, Oaks like Wesley Marshall, and I'm sitting there going, guys, like, there's cash on the line, there's money on the table,
yeah.
And so for me, that was the disappointment entirely about the CSA T20 challenge, because it taught me nothing. All I know is that now Gerald Brevis is probably 6 months. No, I don't think he's ready yet, but he's 6 months away from being a 3-format Protea, and they need to figure out a way to try and integrate him along with him learning his cricket, because he's still because he goes and scores a 162, but he'll go out the next game playing a short ball and pulling a short ball. There's certain things that
first class cricket's going to teach him that. Nandre Berger running at him tomorrow.
That's another guy. That's another guy who disappointed me. That's another guy who Western Province. No, man, that's another guy who disappointed me. I was truly disappointed by Nandre Berger. The other thing is this whole.
He just didn't take as many wickets, but he bowled pretty well.
But the other thing from a bowling perspective, and Tim will talk about this, I think there's now we know who the next guys we need to pick for the Proteas are. From a bowling perspective, they've set themselves apart. Everyone else, I'm sorry. So Nandre Berger, sorry, the guys, no. It's Bamani Glengley, it's O'Neill Bartman, see what they have at that level. Everyone else,
I think
I'm sorry, Luto Sipamla, nothing. Pierre and Hendricks, we shouldn't see that experiment again.
I would like to see Ntete bowl in different conditions, than the ones that he got. I think these conditions were perfect. Oh, wait. It's his first proper, let's say, it's his first proper season. Let's say that we've seen him. He's bowled exceptionally well. And the wickets suited his style of skiddy bowling that he bowls. It did suit him. Those type of bowlers did really well in this tournament.
Yeah.
So I do think that the conditions suited him well. I would like to see him bowl on a Wanderers track, for example, or Centurion track, and see how he does there. On wickets that assist the fast bowlers a little bit and gives more to the batters. I think he was excellent. But Otni Batman, I was very, very impressed with him again, because it's now consistent. It's previous CSA T20 challenge. It's the One Day Cup. We've seen him now again. He was in and out of the Proteas team. Never got an opportunity to play properly but he's been in the squads. So I think he's the closest, with regards to getting a call-up as a bowler, perhaps. Tim, is there Gerald Coetzee bowled well? I thought under pressure, he bowled extremely well, especially in that game against the Titans when they were smacking the ball all around. He really took a proper stand. He was bowling quickly. So that's another boy that we can put in the mix there. But the bowler's perspective, from your perspective, Tim, who's the bowlers that really stood out to you? We have to talk about them, of course, before we get to the massive star of the tournament, of course.
Yeah. You could pick a load of them. It wasn't surprising. When it came to the discussion about not being picked and picked for the T20, SA T20, there was nobody in the batting that you could say he feels undone by. There is nobody that can think he's unlucky not to be picked. Nobody. Not a single player. When it comes to the bowling, there were plenty. You could feel hard done by. How Pungy didn't get a kick is beyond me. It is beyond me. But they all bowled well. I'm delighted for somebody like Ethan Bosch. Absolutely delighted. He's had a lot of injury problems the last couple of years. Hasn't been able to be consistent. You could pick anyone from that Dolphins setup. Bartman, Bosch, Tupavalan. You could take those three and put them in there. Ethan Bosch's swing is important. It's telling that Coetzee outbowled Pretorius by a considerable margin. When Pretorius is the one that's getting picked in all the overseas gigs. What impressed me most about him was him in the death. His death bowling, which is a huge problem for South Africa, was hugely impressive. His Yorkers, it's an underrated. For some reason, South African bowlers don't seem to want to bowl Yorkers, so it's a huge plus for him. Who else could I think? That pretty much, those are the main guys that did well. I agree with you. I think Nantry bowled all right. I'm being a bit biased, but I do actually, Andrew, it's good to see him back fit again. It's huge plus for Western Province to see him back full fitness. We know Western Province had a poor season, but a poor competition rather. But those were the guys. As I say, obviously Bamanya fight of the tournament for me. It was exceptional, much quicker than you think. So that's a huge thing.
That was a shock, Tim. That was a shock for me actually, because I watched him. I watched in that warm-up game between Western Province before this tournament started, between Western Province and the, I think the Rocks came down and they played a game.
Yeah.
And I watched him on the weekend, and I was watching him. And I was like, oh, this is a very decent bowler. I was asking, who's this guy, because I never really heard much about him before. And then I was like, he's quite skiddy, he's quite quick, but he looked even better in the CSA T20 challenge. It's almost like he was bowling at 70%. He looked a lot faster and a lot quicker and a lot better actually in the CSA T20 challenge.
Yeah, well, his former coach Mapumalanga said to me last season. He said he will be playing Division 1 next year. He said to me, it's done. Not that anything was signed or anything. He said he's got what it takes to be in the Division 1, and that's certainly true. So certainly true. Huge, big find for the tournament.
Yeah, massive find. He's blown out everything, and I'm happy for him, because I think a lot of people obviously don't know him, and to be playing Division 2 is really tough. Like, those streets are really tough to be playing in, and the fact that people are noting his ability and his skill, and he can do that. I think for me that was the big one. I think for me, CSA kind of kicked themselves in the foot but with that fitness thing and not letting Sisanda Magala play. I think for me that was a massive shooting themselves in the foot, because the guy is a 5 million man at SA20. Like, how are you not going to try and bring him in to test everybody else in there? And he was part of the Proteas setup, so I don't get that that entirely for me. But look, Ethan Bosch made me eat my words. I didn't think a guy from Division 2 could actually bowl that well and bowl really well. So for me, that was a big surprise. I was like, wow, okay, this guy has, and that's why he was in SA20. So I kind of see it.
He was in the Global T20 too. He was selected in those squads.
Oh yeah, I remember
the guy's very talented. He was extremely. I was always a big fan of Ethan Bosch. He just never got that opportunity to really have a long season without interruptions with injuries and stuff. He's never really had that full run. I was always very impressed with the way he thought and the way he bowled. I actually interviewed him when the Global T20 kicked off, the first one. And and he was part of that competition, and MSL as well. So yeah. Can we move on to Deerwald? I think for me, I'm not gonna. I know people are gonna hate me for this and probably say that I knew what Deerwald had to offer. Like, I wasn't. I was expecting him to do well in this tournament, not to get the record, but I mean that's amazing. And I need to give him all the credit. I was more impressed with Pillay in this tournament from that perspective, on the consistency and the way he approached the game in the conditions. Deva does still look like a guy that will score massive runs and then go missing, and then score a lot of runs and go missing. As soon as they peppered it short at him, he's really struggled. So this is why I really am happy that when I spoke to him a couple of days ago, just off the record, just chatting to him, and just one thing I can mention is that he's not necessarily off the record, is that he really wants to play Test cricket. It's been his dream for a very long time. He has a love for Test cricket. He can't wait to play first class cricket. And I think that is brilliant, because that's going to teach him a lot. Like I said, having Nandre Burgers of the world running in at you, bouncing you, swinging the ball at you early on, it's going to be something that's going to be a massive learning curve for him to go to different grounds and play in different conditions. I think that trip to Durban is going to be a proper test for him, coming in against the likes of Bartman and the likes of the Pavilion, etc. And those guys coming in at him and bowling at him. That's really going to test him. It's going to be very interesting where the Titans are going to bat him. It's going to be very interesting. We can maybe take a guess right now by looking at the side, but it's interesting to see maybe Could be. I mean, we don't know. Wherever they place him is probably the conversations that have been had with the coaches to say, this is where I want to play. Similarly to, for example, Yanaman Malan, he changed his position. I'm interested to see where he will fit in. Is he going to be a top 3, 4? Is he going to be an open? Are they going to push him to be open? Because there's a gap there too, I feel, in the national side. What are they going to do with Deelvat is an interesting one. I prefer 3-4 for him, 4-3. I think more 4 than a 3. Even 5 5 is a bit low, I feel. I think 4 is like probably the perfect place for him.
I'll tell you why.
Where do you guys see him?
I'll tell you why 5. He can, because he can accelerate his run. He's the most versatile cricketer we've seen come through South Africa since AB de Villiers, essentially. And so I think 5 works for him because you then have that ability to be able to have a guy who can break the game. So for me, 4 and 5 would be similar, but you have to have a guy who can either accelerate, slow the game down, who can do things and make bowling attacks bowl to him and make them guess as to what shot's going to come on because he's got such wide array of shots. So I know they call him Baby AB, but if you wanted a comp, it would be AB, and it's having that ability, knowing that a guy at number 5, my guy at number 5, can break the game open. It's like what England have in Ben Stokes, but Ben Stokes comes in at 6. When Ben comes in, he can break the game open. He can break it wide open, and then you want a guy like that, like Deelvat, in there, but you want it consistently, and I think that's what the season's going to be. And so my thing is a team with probably Neil Brunt and Dean Alga opening. You're probably going to have a number 3. I don't know who that will be, but you'll have Tienes de Bruin at 4, and you're probably going to have Deelvat at 5, and then probably Spanela Makanya at 6 or something like that. It could be quite a strong team. It's actually a strong team. Like, I feel sorry for Western Province this weekend. But yeah, so for me, that's where I'd want him. 3 is okay. I don't want him as an opener. I think it's already hard there. He has the skill set, we understand, but I think as South Africa, with the way in which we like to have like some hard-nosed openers and probably a hard-nosed number 3, you're probably going to need somebody in there who can spray shots, who can play his natural game, which is attacking and be attacking, and can change the pace of the game, because that's what was missing in the UK. Somebody to come in and change this pace of the game. You thought Aiden Markram is not it. In as much as he's got the repertoire, it just hasn't worked out. I'm not sure if you want to continue with them at 4. Huh?
I honestly think he was open again.
Really? We've seen that experiment. Bye.
No.
It's over.
No.
It's over.
No.
I mean, he's got hundreds there as an opener for South Africa. Like,
when
I mean,
was
how
that
can
100?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He's still got hundreds for South Africa.
Your argument with Deelvat is the same with Aiden, right? He scores big runs, but they're inconsistent. There's a lot of 20s in between the hundreds.
Yeah, but
what are we going to do with that?
The way things have gone with Aiden, I feel it hasn't always been 100%. It hasn't been perfect ever for him in the setup. I'm thinking for a lot of the players actually, they haven't. The younger guys haven't not really had that support or that aid, etc. around him. He was playing really
Aiden's
good when he had the likes of that experience.
Aiden's been on this side for since 2017, since 2018.
Yeah, and I'm saying that period when he was doing well, the experience that he had around him really helped him. It really helped him in that particular period. But I think something's gone wrong in his 4-day game where he's messed around with the batting positions, his stance, his mental game is shot. Yes, he needs to go play 4-day cricket and score big runs now. 100%.
But then what must we do?
But I don't think that they should change his position. Go back as an opener and go back for the Titans as an opener. Go and be the position that I think his best position is opening. That's where he will be more destructive, I feel. We've got players coming through in 3 and 4s. I think I honestly think he's too talented to just leave him out and just forget about him. Honestly. No, you feel.
We've forgotten about Tienes de Bruin.
I haven't forgotten about
Guys still have a 50, but nobody wants him on the side.
I was just gonna say. If you want a guy that can play red ball cricket and you think he hasn't been given a proper chance, it's Tienes. Batted at 7, batted at 3, batted as an opener, batted at 4, batted at 6, batted at 8, batted up and down, all the up and down the order like a yo-yo.
So Khalid, for the next year, I'm okay with not having Aiden and trying other openers and see if guys stick. So if
Like
Sarl
he's
fails in
only batted
Australia-
opening in domestic. He doesn't bat for in domestic. He always runs
what I'm
as
saying
an
is-
opening batter.
what
So
I'm
what's
saying
the, I
is,
don't understand
let's
why
find
they're
a
pushing
solution
him
at
at
the top.
4 just to fit him in the team. That doesn't make sense to me.
because everyone's trying to figure out
A
what
space
we're
for him
figuring
instead
out
of
is how
instead of
is he
helping
playing?
him fix his. But instead of helping him fix
But
his
we've
problems,
tried, guys.
they just
Oaks,
no, they haven't.
the Oaks technique.
No,
the
they
Oaks
haven't.
technique is
I'll tell you why they haven't helped him with Umpo. Every single time he doesn't perform, they send him to domestic cricket. There he scores 600, 800 runs, comes back, and they say, okay, go again. That's
but
not the issue with
Titans are
him.
Khalid, the
His
Titans
issue
are
was
the
the
best
issue.
place in South Africa.
His
okay?
issue is mental. It has been mental since
Help
about
him.
2020. The last 2 years, it has been mental. I am a strike record. The Proteas need a permanent mental coach. Permanent,
They need a mental-
365
seriously,
days of the year.
That's the issue.
Not from
Because even when he went to county, he scored runs. So that's not the issue.
it's
It's
mental.
not the issue that he
It's
can't
not-
score runs. That's not the issue. The issue is something mental in that South Africa. When he bats for South Africa and he's in that team, there's something there that's blocking him from being able to be the player that we know he can be. And
So then what does he
everybody, all the batters are failing. Every single one of them except
We know
Rassie van
they
der
are
Dussen.
failing.
So there's a mental issue there, bro. They need to sort that out. I think that that Aiden's way too good, man. To just leave him and let him just rot away. He needs
There's so many guys.
sending
who are
him to
way too
domestic
good.
cricket hasn't helped him because he just goes and scores big runs.
You're gonna have
He
the
doesn't
same
have an issue
problem
there.
with Devalt. You're gonna have the same problem with Devalt if it doesn't go off well in Test cricket. It's gonna come back again. So what you're
But that's
telling
why I
me
say
is that
we need
is
to
that
be
we
patient with
fundamentally
our
have a problem
players.
with these guys.
We need to be patient.
It's been 4
We need to be
years.
with certain players. We need to be patient the way we bring them into the team. Be very aware. Each individual player needs to be looked at and monitored and see where is their strengths, where is their weaknesses, what do they need to improve. Are they ready for the step up? That in-depth analysis needs to happen with every single player when they're playing for the national side. That doesn't happen. What we do is stopgaps. Oh shit, this person's not playing well. Let's just throw someone in there. Hope he comes off. He scores 100 in the conditions that suit him. Good, he's gonna stay there. He keeps his job. Doesn't score 100, gets dropped. That's exactly what happens. Calverain is one century in New Zealand. That's kept him within the team. That's kept him in the team. We've seen this consistency. It happens. The only person that didn't do it to, which I disagree with, is Terence de Bruin. He got 100 in Sri Lanka and then they just dropped him. He was nowhere to be found again. I don't know if there was an issue with regards to him and the coach, or he didn't see eye to eye with Boucher, what the case is. Because we know Boucher, we've heard lots of stories that are off the record. We've heard stories and things fly around the cricket space about Boucher falling out with a lot of players. So it's a concern for me. And our captain himself, is not scoring runs. Himself, he's struggling. So so it's not only Aiden, but Aiden was highlighted because he was the golden kid. He won us games. You can't keep that up forever. You can't keep that up. You can't be the savior every game. There needs other players.
He's the worst of the lot, though. That was the problem.
He ended up being He ended up being the fall guy and the scapegoat. Yes.
No, it's not the fall guy. If you looked at the averages over the past 18 months, he's the worst of the lot. What are we supposed to do?
So I understand that, but there's been no help given to him to try and improve those things that he felt is in his game. There's been no help with that. They just send him back to domestic and let him go score.
No, but
that's
Khalid,
not helping.
It's what we argue with on a weekly basis, my Paul. The players are not getting the required backing. Not in terms of chances, in terms of personnel. The backroom staff are not doing their job. We need a proper setup within that Proteas that is giving the players that confidence. You and I agree that when you and I agree.
But my thing is this, right? It's been about 3 years, okay, not 3 years, 2.5 years where Aiden's been struggling in Test cricket, right? We are adults.
Yeah.
We are all adults, right? You're struggling in the job. He could lose the job, but he obviously didn't. Couldn't he go and seek the help himself? Go and find the information. I understand the backroom stuff.
What if he understood? Right? If he understands what this issue is. I don't think he knows. I think he himself doesn't understand. Because in certain,
But doesn't-
because look, because
but
the
Khalid,
same
all these
issues that he
figures
has in Test cricket, the same issues he has in Test cricket. I'm not going to comparing formats here, guys. So don't say that I'm doing that. But
Yeah.
when he goes to T20 cricket and he's moving around, the ball he seems like he's in his element. He doesn't have a struggle there with regards to reading conditions and playing the ball and doing all of those things. But he comes to Test cricket, where you know the ball's going to come in. Every single ball is going to come in and it's going to be in the same spot. And he doesn't know where to stand. You saw it in the India series. He was standing out,
like I'm
leg
saying,
off. He
as
didn't know
a
where to go.
sportsman, like I'm
Who
saying,
told
as
you?
a
Who's there
sportsman,
to tell
if you
you?
have a deficiency, no, but you don't need to be told. You know this. You as a
No, but
sportsman need to go
but-
seek it yourself.
No, that's
Go
not.
and seek
I don't
it
agree
yourself.
with that.
As an adult.
But
if
I
if
do
you're
disagree with
struggling
that.
with an area, but he needs to go, because I understand he's been failed by CSA. I get it. You can say that he's been failed by the backroom staff, right? But as an adult who earns money, who's doing a job and is failing at it, isn't that going to bother you so much for you to go back to whomever it is, be it a high school coach, be it Mandla Mashimbia, be it whoever it is, and try and fix whatever it is that you have?
Yes. So
You
if
need
he goes to
stop
the coach,
mollycoddling these guys.
so if he goes to CSA and he goes to the coach, he's playing poorly, and they tell him, "No, Aiden, you know what? Just go back to domestic cricket and go get your form back, and you'll be back in the team again." How's that helping him? And he thinks, "Okay, cool, I'm going to do that. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's that. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just need to get it out of my system." And then he goes back to domestic cricket, dominates everybody, comes back, gets into the team, comes there, same problem. You just get Bumrah, gone. James Anderson, gone. Broad, gone. Josh Hazelwood, gone. Stark, gone. You don't where he played them before, when he did play against those guys before in the start of his career, have an issue against him. He knew where his off stump was. He looked calm at the crease. He understood the game. Someone's talking in his ear, and someone has been talking in his ear or wherever, and has messed up his game mentally. And there's something there that they need to fix, because you can't go from being one of the best ODI youngsters that came out of the generation and then dominating list A cricket, with breaking records at the Titans, to all of a sudden not know how to play ODI cricket. That doesn't make logical sense to me. In the format that you were the weakest in, you're now the best in. That makes no sense to me at all.
I agree. I've got a solution. George Linder was in one way or another told, "You're not ready for purchase yet at the moment." In one way or another, that was basically what. That's why he got this 2-year contract at Kent. Otherwise, I don't think he would have got a 2-year contract with Kent if he was still in the picture for the purchase. If I'm Aiden Markram, I'm getting on my phone to my agent and saying, "Put the feelers out there for a county. I will tell them I will sign a 2-year contract. I will spend 2 winters there, preferably Division 1 side, and I will dominate that. If I dominate that against international players, and I play all the 3 formats, all of those, and I dominate all 3, then you would like to think that's A, going to give him confidence, and B, a different outlook on how to play with a different coaching setup, a different environment. He'll go, actually, what I was doing wrong was X. I was doing Y when I should have been doing X. Comes back, has a good season at the Titans, and then, 30, 31, he can have 3 or 4 years in Test cricket. That's my solution.
The problem
I
is
just
that
think this
he's
is going to be a
nationally contracted
recycle.
player.
I
CSA
think this
won't
is going to
allow
be a
that.
cycle. I think it's going to be a cycle. He's going to go.
No,
if
but
they
the
don't
thing
sort
is-
it out and give him the right guidance, because the same thing is going to happen to Cal Verreynne and Ryan Rickleton when they fail. I don't want the same thing to happen to them. They're going to go to domestic cricket. They're going to score millions of runs, come back into the South African setup, and then they still have the same issues. And there needs to be a proper PDP in place for the players that we feel are the best players that are going to be the next best players for the next 5 years. They need to get training at their coaches. Like, for example, I would have loved it if Hamza went back and got peppered with with short deliveries after he had that issues against England, for example. Go back to the coach, learn that. And I saw Ashwell Prince do it with him. That's the thing. Hamza went to go seek for it. I understand that. But he needed to be told that was the issue. Because when he's in the middle, he's like, but it didn't seem so quick. If you watch the guys analyze their own game, they just see maybe, it was just a blip. I mean, I could see the ball. I played at it. I touched it. I mean, it wasn't. There wasn't an issue of speed. It wasn't an issue of like. That's my problem. Is that they don't. I don't think they understand. And the problem also is they lost a very good analyst over the last years. And I know Go Bind is the analyst over there now. He's been turned into an analyst. I don't know how much I agree with it. I don't know what his experience is on as an analyst. But they lost a massive analyst that was really very important to that team. You can see how it's helped the Lions. Prasanna has done a great job with the Proteas in the past. You would be able to pick out those issues and be able to pinpoint what is the issue and give them guidance. And they did rely on that. The Fafs of the world, the ABs of the world, they relied on that. That helped them a lot. And we don't have that anymore. And we don't have that domestically. They can't really, I'm bet you that these cricketers are going home at home when they don't have an analyst and looking at pitch vision to see what they did wrong. That's not the right place to go look.
Yes, but that's always been a problem we've had in the Boucher era is that we keep on replicating mistakes all the way through, right? The only issue I think with Tim's point is CSA is not gonna allow Calvarena. They're not gonna allow Aiden Markram to go and play a summer of English cricket because they signed to them. Unless if they decide not to sign the contract and then go.
Carl's not contracted. Carl's not contracted.
Carl will be. Carl is our wicketkeeper. We currently, Tim and I struggled on the podcast, so wait until the end. We were trying to figure out who's actually going to be wicketkeeper for the Titans this weekend. Like,
it's
What's Donovan doing? What's Donovan doing with 4-day? Is Donovan involved in 4-day? Is he involved in 4-day at all?
But that's.
I don't think he's in the.
Who's the guy?
I don't think he's in the squad, Donovan. I don't think so.
I don't
think so.
I've only seen Western Province's squad. That's another one we were struggling to see because Daniel Smith doesn't make that team if I look at the team. Like, for example, Daniel Smith don't make that team. Eddie Moore, Tony Rizorzi opening the batting. 3 Valley. 4... who's that 4, Tim? Calvarena was at 4. 5 is George Linder, maybe. You could maybe say.
George Linder at 5.
Or 6.
No.
6.
What?
5, maybe. I'm sorry, 5. Avi 5. Avi 5. Avi 5.
Okay.
George 6. 7. Mapungwana. So there's no space for someone like Daniel Smith.
Yeah.
John O'Bird is injured. When he comes back, he's going to take your...
But my point is, who's the guy? If Calvarena got injured, who's the guy we've been calling up from South Africa? Because I know they'll give the gloves to Ryan Rickleton. I don't want that. I know they'll give the gloves to Rickleton. But who's the guy coming from South Africa to keep wicket
as a backup?
Yes.
From the domestic scene.
Who is? We don't have that.
Wolofson.
Grant,
but is he a good enough governor? It could be.
I think
There's like
he's a good enough.
Wall.
You see, Grant's a good enough replacement. But my concern about this season would have been like if it was this season that they could have had, and then we pick out teams, it would have been phenomenal.
Lawrence has an answer. Heino Klaasen comes in.
Klaasen is a possibility.
Yeah.
Biggest fan
but
of
that's
him
the
in
problem
first
we're
class
having.
cricket.
But that's the problem we're having right now is that even at the
When he will come back,
spot,
man.
Right?
When he's
Even
going
at the
to come
number
back.
4, even at the number 4 spot, we hope so.
I'd retire.
But even at the number 4
like
spot,
Paul Scholes.
But Khalid, even at the number 4 spot, right? Markram's gone, right? So who's going to come in obviously, or the middle order? You've got Timber, you've got Rickleton who's there, you've obviously Keegan Peterson's out. You don't have a 3. You can't. You want Aiden Markram to have a rest.
So Rassi will come back.
Rassi comes back, But
Timber comes back.
On the bench?
And then you've got Rickleton and Kyle. It's 5 and 6.
Who else?
Who's going to come in as 3? I don't know. Because I don't know who's going to come in.
But we don't have that luxury. That's why Aiden is going to be forced into different situations like Stian van Zyl, and he's going to be forced to play when he shouldn't be because we don't have the guys. Tim will tell you Janneman Malan should be playing, but I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical about Janneman.
I tell you who should be playing, but he won't be for a range of reasons. David Bellingham.
He just confirmed with me.
No, I know. I know, but
should be playing.
He hasn't been picked for England yet, so I'm just saying.
I spoke to him. Cool. I spoke to David early on. He told me that he has a long-term injury. He's out for a while, so he would have been available for Province, but unfortunately he has a shoulder injury and he's
It's a shoulder, yeah.
so,
It's a shoulder.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
problem. So yeah, so Tim, let's wrap it up. It's been an hour show. Thanks a lot for joining the show as well. I would love to have you guys on again. This is a nice discussion to have, and I think we've opened up a lot of talking points here for the fans to really get into. So guys, please subscribe if you're new. Click that notification bell for all future videos, please. Very important that you guys do so. Tim, thanks a lot for joining us. Please go follow them on social media. He has amazing articles as well that he writes, so please go follow him on social media as well as the Full Quota podcast. Go subscribe there too, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in, Tim. Thanks a lot for joining me, and Paul. Thanks a lot for joining me, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace out.